I started my young adult life on a path that was really desirable. I graduated from college in 4 years. I fell in love. I got married. I moved across the country, and I got a job. And I started really following Christ again. Um, my husband and I found a great church right after we got married. We met some wonderful young married friends. We met some mentors, and we started serving the Lord together. Unfortunately, right from the beginning of our marriage, that we were both growing in Christ, we were not growing together, and we really never did grow together the rest of our marriage. 2 years after we got married, I became pregnant and had a miscarriage. I was pretty devastated, but within a month after miscarrying, I became pregnant with our first son. And not long after that, we moved back across the country so my husband could prepare to go to Iraq. While he was gone in Iraq, I gave birth to our first son. This was a really frightening time for me because I was really scared that I was not only going to lose my husband in war, but that I was going to die myself during childbirth. I have a really rare blood deficiency, and I was just really unsure about what was going to happen and really scared that I didn't have my husband by my side. My son's birth was very high risk, so the doctors took a lot of precautions. And with those precautions, I had a very healthy and safe delivery. Both my son and myself were very healthy after it. 4 months later, my husband came home safe from Iraq, and we spent the next year and a half just living our lives together, enjoying our time. We were going to church. We were hosting a small group in our home, and on the surface, everything seemed great all the time. We had a lot of couples and a lot of friends actually tell us how much they looked up to us and looked up to our family and our marriage and the relationship that we had with each other. We decided after about a year and a half that we were going to try again for another child, and I got pregnant right away with our second son. Once again, I had another miscarriage scare. I was spotting, and the doctor told me that I was going to miscarry and that I was miscarrying and I wouldn't have this child. So during this scare, we actually moved once again to a new job for my husband and for better opportunities for us. And we're so blessed that that doctor was wrong. And while we were in this new state, I gave birth to our second son. We took the same precautions that we did the first time because it was very successful, but this time I had very severe complications. Hours after he was born, I was sent to the OR to remove blood clots, and while I was in the OR, they had to give me a blood transfusion because I bled so much, and fluid started filling my lungs. I woke up in ICU the next morning and spent about 2 to 3 days in ICU. When I moved up to postpartum after that, we spent about 2 to 3 days in there, and we had to stay an extra night because of my son's jaundice. And I remember that night, the nurses decided to give me some more, well, the doctors did, but the nurses gave me some more fresh frozen plasma as precaution. And I remember my husband and I just fighting them. We were tired and we wanted the IVs taken out, and I really didn't think that I needed it. But in the end, they won, and they did give me that extra plasma. And so we went home the next day, and we were just so happy and tired and just really enjoying the first time of our family all being together. I was really swollen from all the fluids they gave me, and they would not give me any diuretics or anything to relieve the fluids because I had bled out a few days earlier. So the second day I was home, I had an extremely bad headache, and it just got progressively worse throughout the day. And Tylenol didn't take care of it. Codeine didn't take care of it. So we called in to get a prescription for Vicodin, and we're getting ready to take me to the emergency room when I lost my vision, and we had to call an ambulance. And while I was at the ER. CAT scan confirmed that I had bleeding in my brain. I was in ICU for about another 3 days, and then spent another 2 weeks in the hospital getting the fresh frozen plasma treatments. And I should not be alive right now. God saved my life, and it is a miracle that I'm sitting here, because they said that the plasma that was given to me my last night in the hospital was what helped the bleeding stop in my brain. And I had the kind of bleed that they don't operate on, because the doctor said that if they would have had to operate because of my condition, they wouldn't have operated. And it took me a long time to see that my life was a miracle from God. I suffered from months of undiagnosed postpartum depression, and when my son was about a year old was when it was finally diagnosed. But at that point, my marriage had already started falling apart right under my eyes, and I really didn't see it. We started opening up to each other about it, and I was committed to fixing things and making it work, but he wasn't, and told me that during my depression he thought that I didn't love him anymore, so he stopped loving me and wanted a divorce. And after a few failed attempts at counseling, I found out about his affair. I was broken when I found all this out. I had heard about the movie Fireproof, and so I went out and bought the movie, and I bought The Love Dare, and I just fought. I was determined to fight, and I turned to God for my strength and for guidance, because I had nothing else. There was nothing else for me to hold on to, and looking back now, God had me right where I was supposed to be. I felt God leading me to stay and to fight, and so I did. I kept my vows to my husband, I kept them to God, and I became a better wife, a better mom, and I learned what it was like to have a real relationship with Christ, and to die to yourself and to live in Him. And it was a struggle daily, and it's a struggle to this day. After 14 years, I was finally baptized. During the year that came after this, my husband left us 3 times, and we only lived together for about 3 months of that year. I finally came to a point of peace that biblically I could file for divorce, and I felt that that was my option at the time. So I gave my husband an option to come home one more time and to try and work things out, or I was going to file for divorce, and he chose to come home. And things were different. Things were different in a good way this time. And progressively, they just started going back to the same routine, the same way it was before. And 6 weeks after he came home, I came across an email he had sent that morning to this woman, again, professing his love. And this time, I left. The kids said goodbye to their dad. We said goodbye to our friends and our church. We left our house. We left our life, and we moved back to California. I felt like I had lost everything. I had no idea who I was. I had no idea what to do. I really didn't know what to do outside of my marriage. That was who I was. I was a wife, and now I was no longer a wife. But God knew this. God knew this way before I did, because He prepared me for it. A few months before I left, I got a job working from home, and my company was really supportive in my move, and I'm now able to keep my job and to work from home in our new place. We lived with my parents for a few months, and now the boys and I have an apartment. I have a dream now, and I have just a desire, and I'm starting to see it through, to get my master's degree in counseling and to help other broken people. And for the first time in my life, I'm really learning who I am. I'm seeing that who I am is who God made me, and that there's nothing wrong with me and the way I react to things and the way I do things. It's all uniquely who God made me. And I'm seeing now that my fears that I had, most of them were realized throughout my life. I feared that I was going to die during childbirth one day, and I almost did, but I survived. And I feared during our first move that my husband was going to have an affair, and he did, and I survived. And I feared getting divorced and wearing that label, and I am, and I'm surviving. And I feared being a single mom, that I couldn't do it on my own, but I am, and I'm surviving. And a year ago, I had so much faith and so much hope and just believed that I would be sitting here today next to my husband telling you our story of God taking two broken people and redeeming us and just healing a broken marriage, and that we would have a story to share and to witness to people with. But I look back now and see that the story that God had to share with people all along was my story. And so that's why I'm sitting here today on my own telling you a story of God taking someone who was broken and redeeming them for His glory, and just picking them up and surviving and giving me a story to share with you about His love and His grace. And I don't have it all figured out. In fact, more days than not, I don't have it figured out. I even made a mistake this morning that almost cost me my job, but God really showed me and humbled me and brought me to my knees and showed me that even if I did lose my job, that He would still be there, and He's been there all along, because so much has been taken from me, but yet so much has been given to me, and I'm so blessed that this is not the end of my story, and I hope to update you again soon.